I'd like you all to pray along silently in accordance to the faith tradition you may have. Let us pray. Father, we gather today to celebrate and honor these service members as they embark on a new chapter of their lives. We thank you for their years of dedicated service, their loyalty to the Army and each other, their selfless service to our great nation, and the wisdom they have shared with so many. They have all demonstrated pride, resiliency, and competency in their duty to serve the men and women of the United States. They have each exemplified and valued respect for each other, their commands and subordinates that characterize every soldier in the U.S. Army. They have demonstrated integrity and personal courage in serving a full year in a calling that less than 1% of Americans answer. Each of them have honored their callings by keeping the high standards of discipline, noble intent, and pride in their lifetime of service. We thank you for protecting them and keeping them safe all these years. We now ask for your continued blessing upon them as they transition into this new season of life and rejoin the civilian life that they have given so many years to protect. Grant them good health, joy, and peace in their retirement. May they find direction from you in your word, and may they find fulfillment and purpose in you and in their families in every new adventure that lies ahead. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please be seated. We are here to honor 18 soldiers who have completed over 416 years of honorable service to our nation. Only 1% of the United States population chooses to serve their country. And currently, only 3% of the population has served. From that, only 17% of service members that serve go on to reach retirement. The retirement ceremony is a time-honored tradition to recognize those service members and their families who have served their country with honor. We know that retirement ceremonies date back to 13 BC, when the Roman Emperor Caesar Augustus offered Roman legionaries a retirement package. Caesar intended this to serve as an incentive to retired soldiers to remain loyal and not rise up against the government. Moving forward, the United States Congress established pensions for the U.S. Army in 1776. In the years before the Second World War, the retirement systems of the United States military were highly varied and between different branches of service. Today, all the services have the same retirement system and recognize retirees in similar ceremonies. Today's ceremony will consist of welcoming the official party, national anthem, invocation, reading of awards and certificates, remarks by the host, presentation of awards and certificates, the Army song, and finishes with congratulating retirees and their families being honored here today. Our soldiers for life have undoubtedly earned our recognition for their accomplishment through their own self-sacrifice and service to a grateful nation. Each retiree will receive a certificate of appreciation from the Commander-in-Chief, President Donald J. Trump. The certificate reads, "I extend to you my personal thanks and the sincere appreciation for our grateful nation, for your contribution of honorable service to our country. You have helped maintain the security of the nation during a critical time in its history, with a devotion to duty and a spirit of sacrifice in keeping with the proud traditions of the military service. I trust that in the coming years, you will maintain an active interest in the armed forces and the purpose for which you serve. Those who follow in your footsteps will draw inspiration from your commitment, dedication, and sacrifices made to ensure the protection of our American freedoms. My best wishes to you for happiness and success in the future." Each retiree will be sent a certificate of retirement from the Armed Forces of the United States of America at a later date, signed with the Chief of Staff of the Army. Each retiree will also receive the American flag in recognition for their service to the nation. Each spouse will be sent a certificate of appreciation signed by the Chief of Staff of the Army at a later date, and will also be presented with a bouquet of flowers or boutonniere. The flowers are compliments of the Fort Leonard Wood, Mid-Missouri chapter of the Association of the United States Army. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Major General Beck.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity. I want to welcome everybody here this afternoon, and again, thank you all for coming out as we honor 18 incredible leaders and their families who also got them here. I also want to thank the chaplain, the protocol team, and everybody that helps put this on. This is a first-class ceremony, and while it's a short snapshot, it is an absolute thrill to have the opportunity to honor all of you as you did between 20 and 30 years of service to this nation. So I do need to set a little bit of background before I give the rest of my remarks. The first is, if you have been to this ceremony before, we normally play a video. We unfortunately don't have that capability right now. We're working on it. We had a new contract, some new stuff installed. Apparently in our multi-gajillion dollar contract, that wasn't included, I guess. I don't know. But the reason I really love that video, and I'm disappointed we can't show it, because it shows basic trainees. It shows all the training we do here, and it shows the evolution of what you all have gone through. And I'll talk more about that later. The other thing I wanted to highlight for a little bit of background, and everybody on that side of this auditorium knows this, but you all may not. So those folks have to fill out a questionnaire. With all of the retirees, it was 43 pages long. And I love reading through those. And so I will reference those a few times as I continue with my remarks, because I really enjoy reading some of the questions they have to answer. Things like, who supported you the most? What would you do different? What are your thoughts for the next generation? And some of those I'll capture later as we talk. The first thing I've got to do is highlight the unsung heroes, and those are the families. So obviously most of the families are sitting over there. I think we have some spread out in some other places. But I can guarantee you, again, having read the questionnaires, that there is nobody in a uniform retiring today that believes they could have done what they did on their own. Almost to a person, they use terms like bedrock, foundation for my success. One questionnaire said, made me a better person every day. And that goes without saying. But those unsung heroes, those family members, I say this a lot, you are the real readiness to our Army. All of us in uniform understand we get evaluated on readiness. And that readiness is defined by how ready is your unit to go to combat. But you know what? We never even get to that point if it doesn't start with readiness at home. If your soldier couldn't go to work, couldn't deploy, couldn't do whatever they had to do without knowing and confidently believing that things were okay at the house, they weren't ready. And having been married for a couple days now, I can guarantee you that that is a game-changing thing when it comes to readiness. So first and foremost, to the families, and you all had to deal with lots of change. You had to deal with things like a deployment, or 2, or 3, or 4. You had to deal with things like, I'm leaving the office right now, which turned into 3 hours later. You had to deal with late night meetings. You had to deal with field problems that were going to go X number of days and went Y number of days. And while you may have been frustrated, in all cases, you kept driving on. And so, first thing I want to do is sincerely thank all of the families that made today possible for every one of our retirees. And now as I transition over to our retirees, and you heard the narrator say we've got 18 soldiers, and these leaders have served between 20 and 30 years in our military. And it was pretty entertaining when I read through the questionnaires. They talked about the number of you all that said, well, I did my initial contract, or I intended to enlist and get out after X number of years. Yeah, you all screwed that up. And now you need to look to your right, to your families, because you probably looked at them and said, I'm only doing one contract, I promise. Yeah, again, you all screwed that up. But the reality is, over 400 years of combined service walking out the door. Over 50 combat deployments walking out the door. And so again, back to the video, we can't replace that. We won't even try to replace that. But the reality is, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, that's the legacy. And none of you all, none of us in uniform, joined the military to have a legacy. But it happens to all of us. And it's either a strong legacy, or it's one that people talk bad about you. And the reality is, like I said, we cannot replace 400 plus years of experience and the number of combat deployments. But I'm confident, I'm absolutely confident that based on your leadership, based on your mentoring, based on your coaching, and based on the care and commitment that I read in each one of those questionnaires, all of the soldiers, all of the units that you touched over your 20 to 30 year career, they're going to be okay. And our Army's going to be okay. And our nation's going to be okay. So what you did every single day of your career led us to a position where, yep, we can't replace you, and we're not even going to try. But we're going to build on what you did to make this institution the strong institution that it is. And so when you made the choice to volunteer and raise your right hand, many of you had stepped into a point where our nation was at war. And you still decided to volunteer and serve our nation. And many of you did it for reasons like carrying on your grandfather's tradition as he served in Korea. Doing something better for your family as you were married with young children. Giving yourself better opportunities than you would have gotten in the place that you grew up as a young child. But over those initial reasons, it evolved to, I cared about the organization. I cared about my battle buddies to my left and right. I did this for the soldiers that I got to serve with. And that's the evolution, that's the mentorship, that's the legacy. And that's why I'm not worried about the next generation that you all have trained and made the leaders that we have coming up. Now, your 20 to 30 years weren't without a couple changes. So you guys are probably on uniform number 5 or 6, and that doesn't even count the various iterations of PT uniform. We've changed NCOERs, we've changed OERs, we've changed our doctrine. We've changed a lot of things during your service. But the one consistency has been leadership and the commitment that you all showed every single day. And again, I talked about that legacy. Some of the things that you all talked about as you said, hey, this is what I would tell the next generation. Never miss an opportunity. Because the Army's going to get everything they can out of you, but they have a lot to give back. Whether that's schooling, whether that's professional development, whether it's travel, or all the above. That next generation, you need to take the same advantages that you all did. You need to always remember where you came from. And while we say all the time in the military, we are all victims, plus or minus, of our experiences, you're no different. It's where we all started. It's where we grew up. It's where our family raised us. That set the foundation. And you all had a strong foundation to build from, and you carried that forward to the young men and women that you all mentored. And then one of you all said, read the Constitution. And I've done a lot of these ceremonies in my time here. I've never seen that one before. And it made me think about it. Because the reality is, the rest of the comment went back to the reason why you should do that for all that next generation is you need to understand what it is you took an oath to. And it really made me stop and think. And that, again, is the epitome of the commitment that you all brought to every single day that you were part of our military. So as you transition, know that you should all be very, very proud of the service you gave every single day. But what you should be even more proud of is the people and the organizations that will carry on in the image that you created them with. Because that is your legacy, and that will last for decades to come. Now, as we get ready to continue with this ceremony and give you your flag and your certificates, and have the opportunity to shake your hand for the service that you gave us, I do have an ask. Because, and some of you said this in your thoughts and comments, my ask is, when you retire, and a lot of you are staying in Missouri, some of you are moving on to other places. I don't care where you're going. And I don't care, one of you mentioned you're going to continue to grow a family farm. A lot of you are going to give back to supporting the military and our veterans again, as you continue the service that's gotten you this far. But whatever you do, my ask is tell your story. Because each one of you has a different story. And if you think back to the beginning when you were thinking about volunteering for the service, and you were looking at your grandfather who served in Korea, or you were looking at the opportunities that the military might give you, you all had questions about, was this for me? So the reality is, the reason I ask is because there's a young man or a young woman right now outside that is going through the same thoughts that you did. They're having the same questions about what does their future look like? How do they take care of their family? How do they continue their family legacy? So my ask, please tell your story. Please let them know that your story might not be the same as their story. But just like you did, they'll have the opportunity to make whatever they want out of their story in the military. So please, tell your story. And never forget, whether it's in Missouri, whether it's anywhere else, you are always a soldier for life, and you are always welcome back as part of our team at the Maneuver Support Center of Excellence. So as you retire now and you move on to the next chapter in your life, please don't ever forget, your service was never in vain. Your commitment was never in vain. And the efforts that you gave toward the military family that you raised, and I'm not just talking about the family that's sitting to your right, but the larger family that you are now departing, you had a significant impact on all of us every single day. So I'll end where I started, and that is with a thank you. And that is a sincere thank you from all of us for the service that you have given to our country and our military. So thank you very much. And again, you're always a part of our team. From vision to victory, be all you can be.
Ladies and gentlemen, Major General Beck and Command Sergeant Major Palmer will now present the retirees and their spouses with their flag and bouquets for both men. Colonel Horace M. Coleman is retiring after a distinguished military career culminating in his assignment to the United States Army Military Police School Regimental Office, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, as a Deputy Assistant Commandant. He is retiring from the state of Georgia with his spouse Erica and family. Major General Beck is now presenting Colonel Coleman his American flag on behalf of the grateful nation. Command Sergeant Major Palmer is now presenting Miss Coleman with a bouquet in appreciation for her support to her spouse and family.
No, now it's you guys. Now it's you. No, you got to take a picture of just them.
Colonel Chad N. Ramscuttler is retiring after a distinguished military career, culminating in his assignment to the U.S. Army Engineer School at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, as the Assistant Commandant. He is retiring to the state of New York with his spouse Elizabeth and family. Major General Beck is now presenting Colonel Ramscuttler his American flag on behalf of a grateful nation. Command Sergeant Major Palmer is now presenting Miss Ramscuttler the bouquet in appreciation for her support to her spouse and family. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you Colonel Retired Chad M. Ramscuttler and family. Lieutenant Colonel Melanie C. Budnick is retiring after a distinguished military career, culminating in her assignment to Medak Skillwalk, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, as the Chief of Executive. He is retiring to the state of California. Major General Beck is now presenting Lieutenant Colonel Budnick the American flag on behalf of the grateful nation. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Seaburn K. Huntsman is retiring after a distinguished military career, culminating in his assignment to recruiting and retention college as a senior instructor. He is retiring to the state of Missouri with his spouse Bianca and family. Major General Beck is now presenting Captain Huntsman his American flag on behalf of a grateful nation. Command Sergeant Major Palmer is now presenting Miss Huntsman with a bouquet of appreciation for her support to her spouse and family. Huntsman and family. Captain Jacob A. Kersey is retiring after a distinguished military career, culminating in his assignment to HHC 3rd Chemical Brigade as a brigade surgeon. He is retiring to the state of Washington with his spouse Samantha and family. Major General Beck is now presenting Captain Jacob A. Kersey his American flag on behalf of the grateful nation. Command Sergeant Major Palmer is now presenting Miss Kersey with a bouquet of appreciation for her support to her spouse and family. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you Captain Retired Jacob A. Chief Warrant Officer 4 Arnold L. Justice is retiring after a distinguished military career, culminating in his assignment to HHC Misco, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, as a training developer. He is retiring to the state of Missouri with his spouse Virginia and family. Major General Beck is now presenting Chief Warrant Officer 4 Justice his American flag on behalf of a grateful nation. Command Sergeant Major Palmer is now presenting Miss Justice with a bouquet and appreciation for her support to her spouse and family. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you Chief Warrant Officer 4 Retired Arnold L. Justice and family. First Sergeant William Hester IV is retiring after a distinguished military career, culminating in his assignment to the Horizontal Field Division Headquarters, 31st Engineer Battalion, 1st Engineer Brigade, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, as a battalion operations NCO. He is retiring to the state of Florida with his spouse Sherry and family. Major General Beck is now presenting First Sergeant Hester his American flag on behalf of the grateful nation. Command Sergeant Major Palmer is now presenting Miss Hester with a bouquet and appreciation for her support to her spouse and family. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you First Sergeant Retired William Hester IV and family. First Sergeant Jolita F. Kokanee is retiring after a distinguished military career, culminating in her assignment to HHC 43rd Adjutant General Battalion as the HHC First Sergeant.
Get him back.
Major General Beck is now presenting First Sergeant Kokanee her American flag on behalf of the grateful nation. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you First Sergeant Retired Jolita F. Kokanee. Master Sergeant Mary E. Russell is retiring after a distinguished military career, culminating in her assignment to the Future Capability Directorate, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, as a Systems Development NCO. She is retiring to the state of Florida with her spouse Donald and family. Major General Beck is now presenting Master Sergeant Russell her American flag on behalf of the grateful nation. Command Sergeant Major Palmer is now presenting Mr. Russell a boutonniere in appreciation for his support to his spouse and family. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you Master Sergeant Retired Mary E. Russell and family. Master Sergeant Jose M. Urosegi is retiring after a distinguished military career, culminating in his assignment to the 701st MT Battalion, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, as a Battalion S3 NCOIC. He is retiring to the state of Florida with his wife, Marissa, and family. Major General Beck is now presenting Master Sergeant Urosegi an American flag on behalf of a grateful nation. Command Sergeant Major Palmer is now presenting Miss Uriah Stiggy a bouquet of appreciation for her support to her spouse and family.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you Master Sergeant Jose M. Uriah Stiggy and family.
It's been a while since I've done that.
Sergeant First Class Darwin H. Ayers is retiring after a distinguished military career culminating in his assignment to Delta Company, 31st Engineer Battalion, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, as a senior drill sergeant. He is retiring to the state of Missouri with his spouse, Kimberly, and family. Major General Beck is now presenting Sergeant First Class Ayers an American flag on behalf of a grateful nation. Command Sergeant Major Palmer is now presenting Miss Ayers with a bouquet of appreciation for her support to her spouse and family. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you Sergeant First Class Retired Darwin H. Ayers and family. Sergeant First Class Christopher Fry is retiring after a distinguished military career, culminating in his assignment to the 35th Engineer Battalion, 1st Engineer Brigade as a watch officer. He is retiring to the state of New York with his spouse Jill and family. Major General Beck is now presenting Sergeant First Class Fry with the American flag on behalf of the grateful nation. Command Sergeant Major Palmer is now presenting Miss Fry with a bouquet of appreciation for her support to her spouse and family. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you Sergeant First Class Retired Christopher Fry and family. Sergeant First Class Travis L. Linden is retiring after a distinguished military career, culminating in his assignment to HAC 5th Engineer Battalion, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, as a senior construction operations sergeant. He is retiring to the state of Missouri with his spouse Christine and family. Major General Beck is now presenting Sergeant First Class Linden with the American flag on behalf of a grateful nation. Command Sergeant Major Palmer is now presenting Miss Linden with a bouquet of appreciation for her support to her spouse and family. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you Sergeant First Class Retired Travis S. Linden and family. Sergeant First Class Keith L. Osborne Jr. is retiring after a distinguished military career, culminating in his assignment to the 701st Infantry Battalion, 14th Infantry Brigade, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, as an instructor. He is retiring to the state of Florida with his spouse Maggie and family. Major General Beck is now presenting Sergeant First Class Osborne with the American flag on behalf of a grateful nation. Command Sergeant Major Palmer is now presenting Miss Osborne with a bouquet of appreciation for her support to her spouse and family. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you Sergeant First Class Retired Keith L. Osborne Jr. and family. Sergeant First Class Michael A. Toledo is retiring after a distinguished military career culminating in his assignment to HHC 14th Infantry Brigade, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, as a senior training management NCO. He is retiring to the state of Texas with his spouse Desiree and family. Major General Beck is now presenting Sergeant First Class Toledo with the American flag on behalf of a grateful nation. Command Sergeant Major Palmer is now presenting Ms. Toledo with a bouquet in appreciation for her support to her spouse and family. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you Sergeant First Class Retired Michael A. Toledo and family. Sergeant First Class Jeff R. Wiltshire is retiring after a distinguished military career, culminating in his assignment in the Emergency Operations Center, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, as a staff NCO. He is retiring to the state of Texas with his spouse, Latoya, and family. Major General Beck is now presenting Sergeant First Class Wiltshire his American flag on behalf of the grateful nation. Command Sergeant Major Palmer is now presenting Ms. Smith Wiltshire with a bouquet in appreciation for her support to her spouse and family. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you Sergeant First Class Retired Jeff R. Wiltshire. Staff Sergeant Michael Z. Euler is retiring after a distinguished military career, culminating in his assignment to MOTAC 58th Transportation Battalion, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, as a senior instructor. He is retiring to the state of Missouri. Major General Beck is now presenting Staff Sergeant Euler his American flag on behalf of the grateful nation. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you Staff Sergeant Retired Michael Z. Euler and family. Staff Sergeant Adam J. Santelleri is retiring after a distinguished military career culminating in his assignment to the MOTAC 58th Transportation Battalion, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, as an AIT instructor. He is retiring to the state of Missouri with his spouse Haley and family. Major General Beck is now presenting Staff Sergeant Santelleri his American flag on behalf of the grateful nation. Command Sergeant Major Palmer is now presenting Ms. Santelleri with a bouquet in appreciation for her support to her spouse and family. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you Staff Sergeant Retired Adam J. Santelleri and family. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a round of applause for all of our retirees and their families. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and remain standing for the Old Soldiers Never Die, Old Lang Syne, and the Army Song.
Young army goes rolling